Welcome back into the Pacific Breakfast with me, Tony Liao from Miami. That was the sound of Brownsville with Breezing. A little bit of snippet of the old George Benson song of similar nature. It is now, going on 11 minutes, 21 minutes to 9 o'clock. Joining us now on air, all the way from San Francisco, is Faunga Moliga. He is a commissioner on San Francisco's Board of Education and a native son of San Francisco and the Pacific. And we got in touch with him. He's a very busy man, so we're very blessed that he's joining us now just to give us some sort of opinion on the ground with regards to what's happening today, a historical moment in the big US of A in many different levels. First of all, the current sitting president not attending the inauguration of the current one. That hasn't happened in 150 years. Amongst many of the things, we're seeing a new light, the first ever female of color vice president of the United States. And who knows, I mean, if she whatever future she has, she could be the first ever woman president, but that's a long way away. So joining us now just to tell us how things are going is the one and only Faunga Moliga. Talo Falava, and welcome to the program, brother.
Always good to be here with you, man. Thank you for the invite.
I know that you are a busy man, so I'm just going to make this real quick for the audience that are tuning in. Tell us about the inauguration because everyone, you and every American, are watching it from online. What are some of the feedbacks from the people there so far?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a edgy-ish kind of feeling out here in the United States. There's a lot of excitement, and there's also some kind of hesitation. We had a really unfortunate experience. I think it was about a week and a half ago at the DC in terms of what they call a protest, which actually folks are deeming as a more sort of a coup, as a riot, right? And so there's some tension. There's some tension. People are happy to see that there is change in the White House, but there's definitely some tension. So you know we um, we have a lot of work ahead of us here in the United States in terms of like bridging, communities, groups, and like what does America really stand for? I think is going to be challenged within the next 4 years, and who we are as an identity in this global in the world is actually everyone's looking at us right now. What are you guys going to do, right? And so it's kind of like it's a happy and it's also kind of like a shaky time right now in the United States for the most part.
I think what most, and this is probably the entire world, is a look and an standing outside looking in of disbelief. Never, I mean, this is like a movie. I don't know if you're familiar with The Handmaid's Tale. It's what they did where they separated the state and you started seeing armies, and then you've got little community groups, local militias. And there's the thing about America is everyone is whipping up, right? Like you can, if you got a license, you can get it. And now we are struggling to distinguish between the National Guard and the police. And then we see militia groups, and there are even talks of people morphing in or pretending to be wearing uniform. And we're like, but what's it for? I thought America is trying to come together. And so it's been a really confusing thing looking from the outside in. But given everything that's going on at the moment, it just seems like it's going to be, other than COVID. I know that's what Joe Biden wants to do now, coming into office, but bringing the country together. How much longer do you think that's going to take? Because there are people loyal to the bone. They're just not bending. They're still refusing to accept the outcome of the election.
hmm hmm Yeah, I think first and foremost, congratulations to the president, Joe Biden, and we now have, like as you mentioned, the first female vice president, and she just so happens to be a person of color, which makes things very interesting in a country like America, right? With the long-standing history that we have in this country around racism, and what you've seen within the last 4 years of, you know, Donald Trump's presidency, which whether you agree or don't agree with what he was doing, it definitely has brought to surface what America is in, as you could say, in its entirety, right? It's in its entirety, right? And so it's, you talk about this American dream, but the American dream and America in itself has all shades to it, right? And so I think it's going to take more time to actually bridge those. And what is the the denominator that's going to bring those together. And I think the president Biden tried to do that today in terms of his inauguration speech and just trying to unite. But it's I don't see it happening anytime soon, right? Because you have the socioeconomic gap too, right? And so you have like the class status, the socioeconomic gap, you have the racism, you have the gender things that are happening, and so it's going to be a while, my friend. It's going to be a while, but it has gotten a whole lot better than what it used to be, but we still have a long road ahead of us.
I'll tell you one of the well, we in Aotearoa and Australia and everyone else that lives outside America, the one thing that's been trending is the conversation that when we saw the riot, someone took a still photo of a Tongan flag, and they were one of the people who were part of the crew that stormed Capitol. I don't know, because if you are a supporter of Trump, you don't call it storming. They were just there and protesting. But if you were, and people were like, what the hell are our island people doing? See, because for us over here, we don't know exactly, because everyone think, oh yeah, I'm sure the majority of Pacific Islanders in America are all Democratic because it sounds similar to the laborish governments that we have here. But then there are also a big movement of Pacific Islanders who actually stood for Trump. And so
Hmm.
it was like a
Yeah.
it was like a shock for us here because we thought, oh man, it's not everything as we think it is. I mean, where are our people traditionally leaning when it comes to American politics, and why?
It really just depends, right? Like you have and to your point, you're absolutely right, right? Like you have a really strong conservative Pacific Islander base here in America, right? That is still like rooted in like traditional ways that uh, kind of a lot of it is most likely stemmed out of religion, right? And then you also have your progressive side, who predominantly is your younger generation. uh, I would say your generation X, Y, and Z, right? So the data says that you have more younger folks who are leaning towards democratic and progressive values, but the votes that show up at the end of the day tend to be more your conservative, Pacific Islanders. So, I think the last time they threw the data, I think it was about maybe 60-ish, 50-ish, 60-ish% Democratic, progressive in terms of youth and folks that lean that way, and then the rest were more conservative. But you're talking about a group of folks who like really respects their elders, right? And so there's the level of like our culture that plays into politics here in America too. But it's social media. There's a lot of stuff that will tell you that we are definitely not all politically aligned, as Pacific Islanders in America.
For you as an American and someone that's heavily involved in education, not just that, but you've got many different NGOs, so you're involved in helping the people of San Francisco, both as a city and as for our Pacific diaspora. What expectations are you putting on the incoming president Biden now that he's sitting at that chair, not just for the first 100 days, but immediately?
Hmm. Yeah, that's and that's it right there. That is the question. That is the question beyond political lines for any Pacific Islander. Whether you believe in this or that line, the question is, what are you all doing for our people? Right? What are you all doing for our people? And how do we hold these folks accountable to the Pacific and to the Oceania? Right? I read earlier today that the president is signing 17 executive orders, and one of them has to deal with equity and treating people, in ways that is, giving people the equal rights. And part of it is, including Asian American, and it has Pacific Islanders in there, right? The push on our end as a community is to really have the president and the leadership recognize that we are Pacific Islanders, right? We are Pacific Islander. We have unique needs. And what is your plan? And what are you guys going to do for us, right? And so it's great. We can celebrate, but the work on the community side is to hold people accountable, right? And we have to do that through advocacy, working together, and working with our legislators to make sure that happens. So
400,000 Americans so far have lost lives because of COVID, and I know there's um, small islands like Palau and the federal state of Micronesia have been affected even within mainland America. Some of our famous sons of Samoa themselves have We had Gangsta Rid, for instance, Cuddy Banks, some of these other guys on the West Coast, and many, many different other community people have lost their life because of COVID. How is it impacting on education in America moving forward? Because I know that's a big part of you. Are we looking at America going fully um, digital until a certain time when safety has become adamant around the land?
Yeah, no, folks in this country is definitely not going to have that. There's a huge push around trying to get back indoors. I will tell you this though, education moving forward as we start to roll out vaccines and get everyone vaccinated is not going to look the same. And if it does look the same, then shame on America, right? It needs to be different. Focusing in on our own ocean and Pacific, the data is out there, right? When you talk about learning loss, when you talk about digital divide, we had a meeting on Tuesday. Pacific Islanders in San Francisco, right? They're not able to get a hold of parents, right? They're only able to get a hold of 50% of our families right now, and that means there's a whole 50% that people are not reaching. Digital divide. When it came to digital divides, Samoans in San Francisco needed the most digital equipment out of any group. They had to provide 80% of the population with digital divide. And so then we go to learning loss, right? Learning loss meanings, how many of these kids have received D's and F's within, the last grading period in last year. Samoan, Pacific Islanders, Latinx, and your blacks here in San Francisco, they are like championing at the top. And so I had a call with the senator yesterday, and they were asking, what do we do for Pacific Islanders? And to your point, um, here are issues. When you guys are out there at your legislative, meetings, and you guys are talking about issues that need to be addressed, you need to know and you need to speak on it, also put in writing, which was why I was happy I saw that in writing today, what Biden put out, that there needs to be a plan for Pacific Islanders because when you look at the data in terms of like the COVID infection and the amount of folks that have been impacted and lost lives in our community, there is no reason why you guys should be looking over these communities. However, my thing is it has to continue to get pushed from the community and we have to get politically active, right? We have to get politically active. But there's going to be a huge gap there that we're going to have to fill in, and it's going to be upon the community and the legislative leaders to be able to make sure that happens, right? So a lot of work ahead of us, but we are on a good trajectory right now. I think it's brought a lot of people together, and we just have to keep up the momentum and keep driving forward.
Vaunga Molinga, thank you very much for your time this morning, man. Congratulations once again for your country welcoming its next president, and we hope to speak with you again.
Thank you. Anytime. Anytime.
Awesome.